Welcome, 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 everyone, to the Women's Empowered Network. And you know what? I am going to change my background real quick so we know where we are. There we go. All the little details. And I want to welcome Melanie with us today. So, welcome, Melanie.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. So, I always have these few set of questions I always start out with, and then we let it go organically from there. And what I always love to hear, and I think other women like to hear, is your story and journey that led you to what you're passionate about today.
Yeah, that sounds good for sure. I think I shared some of it a little bit in our meet and greet a few weeks ago, so maybe people have already had a bit of a insight into what led me down this path, but I'm happy to share it again. Um, yeah, I actually had a serious hiking accident in November of 2021. I was hiking with my dog and we were going on these big boulders, and I called my dog down to me, and he came down, but then went around me and jumped off the boulder that we were standing on, and the leash pulled me down. So I actually fell head first, um, and had a severe brain injury from it. Was kind of written off a little bit. The doctors did a lot of things, but we're like, okay, this is as far as you're gonna get, and so you're not going back to work. You're not going to be like in these, in charge of your finances. These types of things are not going to happen for you. And I thought, well, I don't know that I want to settle for that. So I really took a deep dive into holistic um, healing and did my bachelor's in holistic medicine. And that really then filled in a lot of the gap. There's still a lot of physical injuries that I'm dealing with, but the brain injury has pretty much resolved at this point. There's a few things that are still a bit of a challenge for me, but mostly I am back to myself and able to work and able to be productive and able to manage everything myself and remember passwords and all these things that were a huge struggle before. So I'm really grateful for that. I'm working on my master's now and will continue to explore the holistic healing because it was a perfect complement to the modern medicine that also helped me quite a bit.
That is so beautiful. And I mean, I'm sorry that it took this fall to open that door for you, but for a lot of us, it kind of seems to be the path, right?
Yeah,
Uh, to
fortunately.
yeah, to open our horizons. So what is it that you do today that, what has shifted for you in this journey of self-healing?
hmm So what I'm doing today, I'm really focused on my master's right now, obviously doing a lot of studying, but I also work with clients and helping them to find the path to health as well. And so what I'm focused on right now is neuroplasticity, which is the reprogramming of your brain and your abilities and your personality, your beliefs, your systems and patterns that you're in right now. So if you're frustrated with where you're at, or you're wanting to add new knowledge to your life, that can really get things grooving and starting. I work with a process called the Selena process, and basically we go through different modalities, including breath work, sound healing, meditation, to really release anything that's no longer needed and to create new patterns and new behaviors that are going to support who you want to become.
That's so beautiful. And for those of us in the group that don't aren't really familiar with the term neuroplasticity, you want to explain a little bit more about that and what that is?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. There's a neuroscience professors out there. I'm forgetting his name right now. That said that neurons that fire together wire together. And so basically, what science has shown is that the neurons' activity is actually promoted by our own thoughts and beliefs. And so the more that we repeat a thought, the more that it becomes an emotion, And the more that that becomes a behavior and that becomes a personality and then becomes a reality. And so neuroplasticity is our ability to create new connections within the brain. If you think of it as a river, uh, it takes a really long time for a river to form onto a land, right? It starts as a little drop, and then that drop becomes a trickle, and then that becomes a stream, and that becomes a river over time. It's the same idea with neuroplasticity. We're going to be implementing new drops into your brain that are going to become streams, that are going to become rivers, that are going to become strong flow of who you are and bonds over time just by changing a tiny little drop at a time.
What comes to mind, I'd like to share a little story on an example of how that worked for me. I remember over in my 30s, I wanted to quit smoking. So I identified, we're thinking about those what wires together, you know, I thought of myself as a smoker. And I had tried many times to quit. So then I decided, well, I'm going to practice in my car because I had a long drive to work, and I would practice being a non-smoker. And within a week, I was like embarrassed to let anybody in my own private car see me smoke a cigarette. I would take a puff and then hide it below the window, you know, because I was really psyching myself up because I wanted it to be permanent and I really wanted to change. It it was probably 5 years that I went from a smoker to an ex-smoker to a non-smoker, and the emphasis being on it wasn't after 5 years, it wasn't even part of my thought process. It didn't matter how much stress or what was happening, my thoughts never went back to it. So that's just what I think of, when you're reprogramming your brain and those neural pathways that, you stop using those old ones, that they just disconnect. They don't exist anymore, and you can create new ones.
That's a really good example, and it's definitely an powerful one, right? Because a lot of people have struggled with that for so long, and it applies to so many different things. Exactly. It could be a habit, it could be a belief, it could be so many different things.
Well, or just, what you're talking about mindset, it's just patterns of thinking, how we think about ourselves and shifting that. And it just comes to a choice and a decision, doesn't it? Just like when you're at the doctor's, you did not accept the diagnosis that he was handing you. It's like, no, this is not okay. How long do
Yes,
you think that
thankfully. So.
journey, how long do you think that journey was from having the injury with the diagnosis and waking up one day and just really feeling appreciative about how much more normal and fulfilled your life had become again?
Oh, sorry. It actually took some time for me for sure. From definitely from the accident to my recovery was almost 3 years. Yeah, yeah. But it's with brain injury, it's always a slow recovery. But what I'm most grateful for is exactly what you were touching on, is the idea that I was handed a card that wasn't really what I wanted, and was able to find something that really could help me get a lot better. So I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to mention, when you're working with somebody like you, Melanie, is it's not going to take 3 years or 5 years. I mean, yes, if it's a physical recovery, maybe it's longer, but things can shift much faster, can't they?
And
Oops, we
depending on what it is that we're working on, for sure, it can really make a big difference for sure.
That's exciting. So you said you were working on a master's now?
Yes, yeah, I'm working on my master's in holistic medicine, and that is my topic for my thesis is neuroplasticity and the ability to reprogram and change our patterns and beliefs. So yeah, it's really fascinating work.
It is. And I've also, I think when you were talking about what was it that how did you say it about thoughts that wire together, fire together? Is that how you said it?
That's right. Yes,
Yeah.
neurons that wire together, fire together. And then the whole idea is that our thoughts are creating those new pathways, right? It's not necessarily what's happening to us, it's not necessarily what situation you're in, it's really the thoughts that you're associating with the event and the experience that you're having.
So we're choosing our emotional response to something we're experiencing. Is that what you're saying?
A lot of the times we are, and a lot of the times we're conditioned to have a certain reaction or response to a certain situation. And then with training, we're able to create a new response or a new automated emotion that pops up. And so that's what the field is, and that's what we're working with, is to create new pathways, new beliefs, new systems, new reactions, a new person, really. Yeah.
It's so exciting. I love that you're doing this and that it's becoming more and more uh I want to say common knowledge because I think you were talking about Dr. Joe Dispenza. And I mean, I had a very personal close friend who had MS for 35 years and going through that and reprogramming her mind. And it was worded, I think, a little bit different, like she was stepping into a different version of herself that she was tapping into that didn't have the MS, which coincides with the neuroplasticity because that version of herself had different thoughts, different outlooks, different feelings about herself. And she completely cured herself of MS. Um,
That's
you
amazing.
know, so, you always hear these stories, but it's always like some mysterious person or a stranger. It's, not very often. It's like somebody very close to you that actually did the work and you actually see the results and who they are and who they've, become. Um, so, it's kind of a message of hope and
Yeah,
encouragement.
totally. That's beautiful. Yes, Dr. Joe Dispenza is one of the teachers at my school, Dr. Bruce Lipton. So many wonderful teachers. Yeah.
Right? Great company. Great
Yes.
company. Yes. So what else would you like to share with the women today? Is there anything else that comes to mind?
Well, I would love to invite everyone to join my group. I am, like you, Jenny, running a group. It's called the One Conscious Love Network, and I'll put the links below. And so, yeah, if you'd like to join, please do. The group is all about sharing more love and being consciously uh, aware of that and choosing that in our lives and our communication styles and the way that we're creating events and creating learning. And so it's just a really supportive, friendly community. I wanted to invite all of you to join.
Well, we'll definitely make sure to put the links above the interview and in the comments so that you can go check out Melanie's group. And because I love what you're about and I love what you're doing. And the more groups we have that are sharing this message and teaching us and showing us that there's another way for us to live our life than the role we were handed, and maybe living on autopilot and frustrated and feeling stuck. Connect with Melanie because she's here to be of service to all of us. I'm just so excited that, we connected and that I got to get to know you a little bit. Is there any parting words of wisdom you would want to share with us today before we go?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that there's nothing that you're actually stuck in. There's nothing that's actually unchangeable, right? And I know it can be hard to believe, particularly like one of my areas of focus is sleep. A lot of people aren't able to sleep and they've never been able to sleep. And so they're really believing that that's who they are, but everything can be changed. And so, whatever it is that you're struggling with, whatever it is that you're confronted with, we can change it one little bit at a time. And so I think that your example was perfect with the smoking. And anything can happen. So just want to invite you to open yourself to the possibilities. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm sorry about the construction visit halfway through our interview. They were
That's
very early, which I think is very unusual, but hey, it happens, like you said.
well, that's why we have editing software.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
No, I'm so grateful we connected. And I'm just curious, was it Tammy or Lori
Yes,
that connected you? So I wanted to be a shout out to Tammy for, connecting us and you connecting with her. And she has a group. Um, Hers is a wellness
the
network.
Women's Wellness Network.
Women's
Yes,
Wellness Network. So if you want to
yeah,
check out her group as well, because we're all interconnected, we're all here together to be of service to everybody because, different
totally.
people resonate with different people. So if you resonate with Melanie, join her group, reach out to her, connect with her, ask her about her practice and her coaching and services. And again, Melanie, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. It was a real pleasure. I hope you have a wonderful day.
I will. And it's better now since we had our conversation.
Great.